How's it going, everybody? I have a really awesome subject to be discussing with you all today. But first, before I get into that, I want to let you all know that I will be posting more vlogs, more eating videos, and I'll be posting some of my videos on, weightlifting and how to exercise properly, and all sorts of other things. I'm going to be posting content from all different angles and areas, much more diverse than just my usual psychology, philosophy, herbalism, health, nutrition type videos. So I'm going to be diversifying, and I hope that you all like that. I feel like a lot of people can benefit from it. So with that being said, also keep in mind you can ask your questions down below, and I will do my best to answer them. And I might even make a video about whatever subject it is. So ask me your questions and don't be scared, okay? So today I want to talk about essentially your energy and how your emotions and your thoughts can actually truthfully, realistically attract things to you, okay? So there's a lot of woo-woo nonsense going around on the internet about, spirituality and things, the law of attraction, how you attract things to you. And I think that those actually can benefit people, but they don't really do a good job of explaining things in a realistic fashion. But basically, I've noticed there's a huge correlation between somebody's dominant thought patterns, like whether they're optimists or pessimists, and their results in life. Now, it is a fact that your thoughts dictate your actions, which dictates your life. I mean, it's really obvious, and if you don't believe that, if you feel like that's bullshit, then you probably haven't really thought it through, and you should probably take some time to relax a little bit and think about it. But I've noticed the more stressed somebody is, the harder their life becomes. The more stressed somebody is, the more likely bad things are to happen. So it's not really so much like, oh, I feel angry, so I'm going to become more angry. And it's not so much like, I'm happy, so more happy things will happen. Actually, if you're happy, then a lot of times happy things will happen. But if you're angry, it's not just like because you're angry, you're gonna attract bad things. It's not just like, oh, I'm thinking negative thoughts, so negative things will come. Here's what it is. When you feel angry, do you react to your anger? Or do you feel it and not respond from the emotion? Do you think about it? Take some time. When you're angry, do you take some time and like, oh shit, I'm angry, let's take some time to relax a little bit before we act. The same thing goes for sadness, okay? If you're acting from your emotions, bad things are likely to happen. It's extremely important, and this is very true, and I encourage people to think about this thoroughly. Absolutely, it's life-changing. Most mental health problems can be solved from relaxing, and then in a relaxed state, reflecting on their life or their situations or their problems or their emotions, reflecting using logic, thinking reasonably. Because when you look at most mental health issues, not all of them, but most of them, okay, I'm sorry, this is going to trigger people if you're not practicing the relaxation and the rational thinking and the logical thinking. You're probably going to have a hard time believing this because you're not thinking. Because you're just not thinking. That's the problem. But anxiety, depression, Bipolar disorder, and this is from somebody who struggled with bipolar disorder for years before I began correcting it on my own. Especially these, but a lot of these disorders, even PTSD, they can be strongly benefited from and improved, or even removed altogether if they took some time to think logically. A lot of people actually con themselves into having problems, but you know, they placebo themselves into having problems. And if you're one of those people who say, I have anxiety disorder, so blah blah blah, I have really bad anxiety, I have depression, you're literally labeling yourself as a disease or a condition. You're saying, I am anxious. And just because you identify with it, it's going to continue. It's true. You know, and you know, this is from someone who struggled with anxiety and mental health disorders for a long time. And I snapped out of it. A big part of snapping out of these things is just seeing it for what it is and letting go of who you think you are. Stop thinking that you know yourself so well. Because if you knew yourself really well, if you knew how you are, how you think, how you feel, you would know how to solve things. You would know how to live your best life. So, yeah. Like, you're gonna say, like, oh, like, but who are you to say that? Like, I have anxiety, but I do. I'm just being realistic. No. You know, no matter how realistic you're being, the truth is, it's the way you see yourself. So, I mean, I can argue and I can try to convince you all day long, but it's not gonna really do much good for most people. The bottom line is, how you see yourself is how you're going to be. And you don't see the world how the world is, you see the world how you are. I'm sorry, but it's true. So anyway, you see though, like, people are like, oh, but I am anxious, like, but no, you don't understand, like, you know, like, do you hear that? Can you feel that? Like, using empathy, I can put myself in their shoes and I feel the resistance. I feel the struggle that they're feeling. And it's that stubbornness. That, I am anxious. I do have anxiety disorder. You don't know. You don't know how my life. You don't know me. Oh, you don't know. Like, I have a hard life. You know, who are you to judge me? Like, that's your problem. Do you hear that? It's that stress, it's that stubbornness, it's that rigidity. Oh man, it's insane, like, it's mind-blowing. Because that is your problem. Oh, you don't know my problems. You don't know my problems, dude. That's your problem. Chill out. Relax. It's okay. I want to help people, right? You know, it's like, so offensive, right? So triggered. Just though that rigidity and that stubbornness and that attachment to your disorder, that's going to cause more. That is your disorder. Because what's the opposite of stress? Ease. What's the opposite of dis-ease? Ease. Literally. When somebody feels like they have heart disease, they have thyroid disease, they feel lack of ease. That's why it's called a dis-ease. Wow, elementary school. Breaking down words. You know, if I sound condescending, I'm sorry. I am definitely ridiculing. Simply not because you know, I'm not trying to hurt people, but it is mind-blowing and it's so obvious. And everyone is just so like, oh, what the fuck? It's not that. Oh, look at the big brain on you. Oh, wow, Sherlock. Like, oh God, give me a break. That's why you feel so stressed. But you know, essentially, stress causes more stress. It's not the stress, it's the response, okay? How you respond to things. Because you can feel that knee-jerk, like, reaction. Like, oh, that guy, you know, You know, you could feel that stress, like somebody said something and now you're pissed off. Like, you could feel that. But it's what you do with that emotion that creates your life. You know, like my girlfriend, if she does something that pisses me off, you know, I could like, oh, you know, fuck you, you pissed me off, rah, and I could, you know, punch a hole in the wall or something. If I punch a hole in the wall, who's gonna pay for that fucking hole? Right? Someone's got to pay for the hole. You just created more stress. But if I'm angry, she pissed me off. You know, the funny thing is, hours later, everything is okay. It's almost like that stress never existed. Like the stress existed, but it's almost like it never mattered. It mattered in the moment because I was feeling it, but a couple hours later, it's gone, and it's like it doesn't matter anymore. It's either a lesson or it's like a mistake in a lesson, you know? You can always learn from problems, right? So, you know, people who think they can just con themselves into positive thinking, like, that's much better than what most people do. Honestly, if you try to act as if you're happy, even when you're not, a lot of times you'll find that happiness seems to come to you. That's much better than the people that dwell on their problems, that feel helpless. That's much better than people who are constantly angry, who are not controlling their life, right? Because if you're consciously trying to create happiness in your life, even if it's fake, even if you're acting, you're consciously steering your thoughts and your focus in a direction. And that's going to produce something. It's much better than focusing on stressful things. However, it's not like the best thing you can do, because no matter how much you try to pretend you're happy, if you got problems in your life, they're going to keep piling up and getting bigger until you solve those problems. And by acting happy, you can actually, you know, if you do it properly without ignoring your problems, right? Just doing drugs and getting high to forget your problems, that's not going to help you. You know, eventually you're going to have to change your job or change your friends, or eventually you're going to have to, you know, improve your health. But it's better than nothing. But what I'm trying to say is, you can feel angry. You can feel sad. You can feel those, you know, like, oh, these people are like criticizing me for nothing. Like, what the fuck? You know, you could feel wronged. But it's what you do in response to those emotions that matter. If you're feeling angry, it's going to be very hard for you to think straight. As a matter of fact, science has actually shown that anger turns off the prefrontal cortex, and I believe it turns on the hippocampus or what have you. It turns on the emotional brain and turns off, or it limits the firing of neurons and the part of the brain that's responsible for logical thinking. When you're always emotional, it's turning off, whenever you feel strong emotions, your brain's literally turning off your prefrontal cortex. It's turning off your logical thought. So if you look at people, if you were wondering why so many people are full of crazy ideas, you know, people protesting on the highway, right? Like causing buildup of traffic over something like an illogical cause, or, you know, acting irrational over an irrational belief. It's probably because they're so overly emotional. Probably their diet sucks. They got blood sugar problems, which clouds their thinking and causes cortisol. They got lots of cortisol, lots of stress hormones, lots of emotions, and their brain is literally turned off their logical thinking. And so it's very hard for them to get out of that loop of pain, those emotions, because the part of their brain that is responsible for changing their thoughts is off. So it's going to be very hard. That's why I've noticed these people who just like, oh, I'm angry, like they respond to their emotions all the time. They're always overly emotional. They're always overly emotional. Like it's like they every time you see them, like it's so easy for them to get riled up over something stupid. Like you're walking on eggshells. At any moment they can blow a gas can, right? They're just they're like a steaming pot ready to burst. every time you see them. And a big reason for that is, you know, part of it is probably a poor upbringing, but that's no excuse, because I know a lot of people that were abused and raped, but they've grown up and they're thinking rationally and they've got all their shit together. But that could influence them wrong. It's just like they're stuck in this emotional haze and can't get out of it. And it continues to create problems for themselves. People who are overly emotional like that, they spend, like, you know, okay, so they spend all their time complaining, arguing on the internet with random people that they don't know, which is usually referred pain, right? Like they're angry at their boss, they're angry at their wife, and they can't really take that out on them, so they go on the internet and they rant to random strangers and they take it out on random strangers. I feel like that's a big reason why people rant on the internet and why people argue with strangers on the internet. And I think that that's also why you have a lot of aggressive drivers, because they're pissed off at their life and they feel helpless, like there's no way out, and it's the only way they can vent, and the only sense of control they have is to argue with strangers on the internet, to, you know, hate on celebrities, hate on on different presidents, and you know, fucking road raging and shit. So, you know, think about what happens when you live your life that way. You know, if you spend all your time arguing with people on the internet, which is caused by stress most of the time, well, for one, you're going to constantly be stressed. For two, you're going to start to develop irrational belief patterns, like oh, you know, like I don't know, like I don't want to really make an example because I know crazy people are going to get crazy, but you know, like people who hate the police, right? Like they see like police brutality videos and it makes them angry, it makes them scared, which I can understand, I guess. Usually they don't look for the full story. They don't put themselves in the police's shoes and don't think about like what they deal with on a regular basis. And they share the video. And then other people see that police brutality video and they get angry and they get scared and they repost the video and they comment on the video about their beliefs and they rant to people. And then anybody who tries to get them to think reasonably, you know, they get fucking like argumentative and offensive at it. And of course, you know, there are some cases where police officers do overstep their boundaries and it's like there's no way to justify their behavior. But I actually have friends that are police officers and I know what they deal with on a regular basis, and it's obvious that it depends on the person. You're going to have crazy people in every profession, and it really shouldn't be that way. Especially when you're in a position of power, like police officers or presidents. But you know, when you're living life by your emotions and you see like police brutality, it's very easy for people to be like, oh, all police officers are pigs, you know? All police officers. And that's irrational. You're overgeneralizing. All police officers are definitely not like that. A lot of them, you know, shake their heads at stuff like that and they feel like they're given a bad name by these very small few people. And what happens to these people who get freaked out over these police brutality videos is every time they see a police officer, they get more confrontational with them because of their irrational beliefs on all police officers being bad. And so they get more confrontational. So you see videos of crazy people who go out with machine guns on their back, trying to exercise their Fifth Amendment or something, their gun rights. Obviously I don't know which amendment it is. I don't really care too much. That has nothing to do with my point. So if you want to correct me on that, call me stupid, then go ahead. You know, that you're just one of these people I'm talking about. But you know, they go out and like try to exercise their gun rights, have a machine on their back, and then they freak out and try to try to instigate a fight with police officers, and they act all like victimized when police officers arrest them. You know, like, sure, maybe you have gun rights, maybe you're allowed to do that, but when a police officer asks you, what the fuck are you doing with a shotgun on your back, you know, or holding a pistol walking around in public, like, when they ask you, what are you doing, I mean, it's not like they're arresting you right away. Like, they have every right to be curious. Because really, think about it, like, any rational person will see that, and they'll be like, what the fuck are you doing with that? Like, what are you gonna do, like, with that gun? Why do you have that? Like, really, what's the purpose of that? It's not about your rights, it's about, like, what are your intentions, you know? And like, these people freak out and they're looking for trouble with police officers. Where does that come from? That comes from their stress, their fear, their emotions, their feelings of being wronged, and then not sitting down and calming down and thinking about it logically and rationally. And then they create more problems for themselves. And as a matter of fact, it seems to me like the more stressed somebody is, like the more angry they are, the more angry they want to be. They want to continuously find reasons to be angry. You know, I mean, how many times have you seen a person who's always angry, and asked yourself, like, damn, is this person just looking for reasons to be angry? You know, they're looking for trouble. So, I mean, it's a matter of knee-jerk reactions. It's a matter of reacting to stress rather than responding. It's a matter of, you know, literally your prefrontal cortex shuts off and your emotional brain turns on. It's hard to get out of that. And it's an addiction. So people will continue to look for problems, argue with strangers on the internet, waste their time, and they're going to continue to create problems for themselves. And it's sad, but I mean, they are the only ones who can help themselves, really. And they're gonna hear shit like this, and they're gonna freak out and get angry at it, because that's just what they do. They're not benefiting society in any way. As a matter of fact, they're leeching from society. And everybody they come into contact with, they spread that same disease. You know, what kind of relaxed, calm person wants to be around a high-strung, emotional person? Not many people. So it's not that emotions are the problem. It's when you get angry and you just you react to it. Or, you know, you got people who are sad and depressed and they just dwell on their sadness. You know, there's like forums and chat groups and shit. Like, there's websites and YouTube channels specifically like a community there to make a community for people to dwell on their problems. Like, there's these group of guys who believe that women hate them or something. Like, they have trouble attracting women, and so they all have these forums where they dwell on their problems, and they are talking shit about women and their insecurities, and they just hate on women. And that's like their entire thing, and they do it all the time. I mean, how do you expect for women to like you if you believe that, you know, all women are bad? I mean, clearly that's your entire problem, is the way you're perceiving it. And it's going to continue to create problems. I mean, how rational is that? How logical is that? How real, how true is that? Like, oh, all women are, you know, like, blah, blah, blah. All they want is money, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not true. Speaking from experience. The problem is you don't have experience, so you don't know. I mean, you're the one with the problem, but you think you have it all figured out. It's crazy. You know, people with diseases who try to give health advice. Like, no. So anyway, hope that this has kind of helped somebody in some way. Leave your questions and comments down below, and I'll talk to you soon.